It was still dark outside when the pounding on my front door jolted me awake. I looked at the clock glowing on my nightstand, 5:02 a.m. No one knocks at that hour unless something is catastrophically wrong. My name is Sarah Collins. I'm 33 years old, a financial analyst at Brennan & Cole Investments in downtown Boston, and someone who has never missed a day of work unless I was physically unable to move. I live alone in the house I inherited from my grandmother in a quiet suburb where nothing ever happens, where neighbors wave politely and mind their own business. Until today. I pulled on my sweatshirt and went to the door, heart hammering against my ribs like it was trying to escape. When I opened it, my next-door neighbor, Marcus Reed, stood there under the porch light. His face was pale, drained of color, his breathing uneven, as if he'd run all the way over. But what made my stomach drop wasn't his expression, it was his hands. They were covered in fresh dirt, dark soil caked under his fingernails, smeared across his palms like he'd been digging something up, or burying something. "Don't go to work today," he said, his voice low and urgent, eyes darting past me into my house as if checking whether I was alone. "Stay home. Just trust me." I stared at him in complete confusion. Marcus was the definition of unremarkable, polite, quiet, someone who kept to himself and rarely spoke more than a few words in passing. I barely knew anything about him other than he'd moved into the neighborhood a year ago and seemed to prefer solitude. Seeing him like this, terrified, standing on my doorstep at dawn with dirt-covered hands, felt fundamentally wrong. "What are you talking about?" I asked, my voice coming out smaller than I intended. "Did something happen? Are you okay?" He shook his head slowly, but his eyes were sharp with warning, almost pleading. "I can't explain right now. Just promise me you won't leave the house today. Not for any reason." Everything about that moment felt unreal. The cold November air biting at my skin, the pink streak of sunrise just beginning to break over the horizon, and my neighbor, usually emotionless and distant, now looking like a man about to fall apart. I took a slow breath, trying to process what was happening. "Marcus, you're scaring me," I said quietly. "Why shouldn't I go?" He hesitated, his jaw tightening. Then his voice dropped into a whisper that I almost didn't hear. "You'll understand by 9 o'clock." Before I could ask anything else, he stepped back, glanced around the neighborhood as if someone might be watching us, and walked quickly back to his house. He didn't look back. I stood there in silence, my hand still on the doorknob, my mind racing between rationality and instinct. A logical part of me wanted to dismiss it as paranoia. Maybe he was confused. Maybe he was having some kind of breakdown. But another part of me, the part that had always trusted my instincts, told me not to ignore this. And there was one more reason I couldn't just shrug it off. 3 months ago, I lost my father. His death was sudden, unexpected, officially listed as a massive stroke. But in the days before it happened, he kept trying to talk to me about something important, something he said he needed to show me. When I pressed him, he would only say, "It's about our family, Sarah. It's time you knew the truth." Then, before we ever had that conversation, he was gone. Since then, strange things had been happening around me. A black sedan parked near my driveway for hours with tinted windows, never moving. My phone ringing from blocked numbers with no one speaking on the other end, just silence and breathing. My younger sister Emily, who was visiting from London this week, had even asked if I'd noticed anyone new in the area, her voice tight with concern, she wouldn't explain. And then there was the break-in 3 weeks ago. Nothing was taken, nothing was broken, but when I came home from work, I knew someone had been inside my house. My laptop was moved. My coffee mug wasn't where I'd left it. The police report went nowhere. They said I was probably imagining things, but I wasn't. Someone had been in my house. Someone had touched my things. And now, weeks later, I understood why. No one had said anything directly, but I had felt it. Something was moving in my life, quietly, intentionally, and whatever it wasn't random. I made a choice in that moment, not out of fear, but out of logic. If Marcus was wrong, I would simply take a personal day. If he was right, I might be saving my life without even knowing it. I texted my manager, telling her I was unable to come in due to a personal emergency. Then I locked the door, drew the curtains, and I waited. If stories like this touch you, if you believe that hidden truths deserve to be brought into the light, subscribe right now and leave a comment telling me where you're watching from. Because what Sarah is about to discover isn't just about her. It's about every identity that was stolen and never recovered, every life that was erased and rewritten by people powerful enough to make reality disappear. The hours crawled by like insects under my skin. Every noise in my house seemed louder than usual. The ticking clock in the kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator. Even the wind against the window sounded like someone trying to speak through the walls. I made coffee I didn't drink, turned on the TV and couldn't focus on anything. Checked my phone obsessively for messages from Marcus, but nothing came. By 8:30 a.m., I started to feel foolish. Nothing had happened. Marcus hadn't returned. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I should have just gone to work like a normal person. Then, at 8:47 a.m., my phone exploded with notifications. Emergency alerts, news alerts, text messages from coworkers. I opened the news app with trembling hands and saw the headline. Breaking. Explosion at downtown Boston office building. Multiple casualties. The building was mine. Brennan and Cole Investments. 3rd floor, exactly where my desk was located. My legs gave out. I sank to the floor, staring at the live footage of smoke pouring from the windows, emergency vehicles surrounding the building, people being carried out on stretchers. The timestamp showed the explosion occurred at 8:45 a.m., exactly when I would have been at my desk if I'd gone to work. Marcus had saved my life. But before I could process that, my phone rang. An unknown number. I answered, expecting maybe my manager calling from a different line. Instead, I heard a calm, authoritative voice say, "Ms. Collins, this is Detective Morrison with the Boston Police Department. Are you aware of the incident that occurred at your workplace this morning?" My breath caught in my throat. "Yes, I just saw the news. Oh my God, is everyone okay?" The detective exhaled, his tone shifting into something heavier. "Several employees were injured, 4 confirmed dead. Ms. Collins, we need to ask you some questions. Multiple witnesses reported seeing you enter the building this morning before the explosion." My entire body went cold. Blood drained from my face. "That's impossible," I whispered. "I wasn't there. I've been home all morning." Silence stretched between us. Then Detective Morrison replied, and his words felt like hands closing around my throat. "Ms. Collins, we have security footage of your vehicle arriving at the parking garage at 8:02 a.m. Your employee ID badge was used to access the building at 8:04, and security logs show you entered the 3rd floor conference area at 8:11, approximately 30 minutes before the explosion occurred." My knees weakened. I gripped the edge of the kitchen table to stay upright, fingers digging into the wood. "Someone must have stolen my badge," I said, voice shaking. "Someone used my car. I'm telling you, I wasn't there." Another pause. Then the detective asked a question that sent ice through my veins. "Can anyone verify that you were home this morning, Ms. Collins?" I looked around my empty living room. Emily had stayed over last night, but left early this morning to meet a friend. I had no alibi. My sister was here last night, but she left around 6. I've been alone since then. The detective's tone shifted, becoming more formal, more distant. "Ms. Collins, evidence was found at the scene. fragments of the device used in the explosion. Your fingerprints were recovered from those fragments. The world tilted. I couldn't breathe. Someone had been planning this, and I had been part of that plan, either as a victim who was supposed to die or as the person who would be blamed. That's when I remembered Marcus, his pale face, his shaking hands, his desperate warning, "Don't go to work today." "I tell you, I wasn't there," I said, trying to remain calm, even as panic clawed up my throat. Someone must have cloned my badge or stolen my car. Then a sudden realization hit me so hard I could barely speak. Wait, my car. Did the security footage show who got out of the car? The detective responded quietly, almost too quietly. "The footage from the garage has technical issues. We have clear images of the vehicle entering with your plates, but the driver's face is obscured. The camera angle makes identification impossible." My pulse quickened. How convenient. Whoever did this had access to my car, had taken it without me knowing, used it to enter the building, and the one camera that would have shown their face mysteriously malfunctioned. My identity hadn't just been stolen, it had been replaced. I glanced out the window, my heart racing. Was I being watched right now? Was someone waiting for me to panic and make the wrong move? Before I could ask more questions, Detective Morrison said, "Ms. Collins, units will be arriving at your address shortly to bring you in for questioning. This is standard procedure. Please remain at your residence and do not attempt to leave. This is for your own safety." The call ended, and in that silence, my instincts went into overdrive. If Marcus told me not to go to work and someone impersonated me at the scene of a terrorist attack, then police showing up might not be coming for my safety. They might be coming to arrest me. As soon as the line went dead, I moved fast. I closed all the blinds, locked every door, checked every window. My breathing was shallow, adrenaline flooding my system. Suddenly, there was a knock at my door, sharp, controlled, not hesitant like a concerned neighbor, not frantic like someone in danger. It was deliberate. I held my breath and stayed silent, pressing my back against the wall beside the door. Another knock. Then a voice I recognized. "Sarah, it's Marcus. Open the door. We need to talk. Now." My chest tightened. I moved slowly toward the door but didn't open it, my hand hovering over the lock. "How did you know what was going to happen?" I asked through the wood, voice barely above a whisper. His voice came back low and steady, controlled but urgent. "Because I intercepted their communications last night. Sarah, they're not coming to question you. They're coming to take you into federal custody. You were never meant to wake up in your own bed this morning." My head spun. "What are you talking about?" "They staged the explosion to eliminate everyone in that building, and you were supposed to be there. Not as a victim, Sarah, as the one they would blame. They planted your fingerprints on the device weeks ago when they broke into your house." He paused, and I could hear him breathing hard on the other side of the door. "And now they need you alive long enough to confess to something you didn't do." A cold realization washed over me like ice water. Whoever did this didn't just want me gone, they wanted me erased and rewritten as the villain. And whatever Marcus intercepted last night, whatever he was trying to prevent, was never about the building. It was about me. I opened the door slowly, not because I trusted Marcus completely, but because I trusted fear even less, and what he said next would shatter every single thing I thought I knew about who I was. The hours crawled by like insects under my skin. Every noise in my house seemed louder than usual. The ticking clock in the kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator. Even the wind against the window sounded like someone trying to speak through the walls. I made coffee I didn't drink, turned on the TV and couldn't focus on anything. Checked my phone obsessively for messages from Marcus, but nothing came. By 8:30 a.m., I started to feel foolish. Nothing had happened. Marcus hadn't returned. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I should have just gone to work like a normal person. Then, at 8:47 a.m., my phone exploded with notifications. Emergency alerts, news alerts, text messages from coworkers. I opened the news app with trembling hands and saw the headline: Breaking, explosion at downtown Boston office building, multiple casualties. The building was mine. Brennan and Cole Investments. Third floor, exactly where my desk was located. My legs gave out. I sank to the floor, staring at the live footage of smoke pouring from the windows, emergency vehicles surrounding the building, people being carried out on stretchers. The timestamp showed the explosion occurred at 8:45 a.m., exactly when I would have been at my desk if I'd gone to work. Marcus had saved my life. But before I could process that, my phone rang. An unknown number. I answered, expecting maybe my manager calling from a different line. Instead, I heard a calm, authoritative voice say, "Ms. Collins, this is Detective Morrison with the Boston Police Department. Are you aware of the incident that occurred at your workplace this morning?" My breath caught in my throat. "Yes, I just saw the news. Oh my God, is everyone okay?" The detective exhaled, his tone shifting into something heavier. "Several employees were injured, 4 confirmed dead. Ms. Collins, we need to ask you some questions. Multiple witnesses reported seeing you enter the building this morning before the explosion." My entire body went cold. Blood drained from my face. "That's impossible," I whispered. "I wasn't there. I've been home all morning." Silence stretched between us. Then Detective Morrison replied, and his words felt like hands closing around my throat. "Ms. Collins, we have security footage of your vehicle arriving at the parking garage at 8:02 a.m. Your employee ID badge was used to access the building at 8:04, and security logs show you entered the third-floor conference area at 8:11, approximately 30 minutes before the explosion occurred." My knees weakened. I gripped the edge of the kitchen table to stay upright, fingers digging into the wood. "Someone must have stolen my badge," I said, voice shaking. "Someone used my car. I'm telling you, I wasn't there." Another pause. Then the detective asked a question that sent ice through my veins. "Can anyone verify that you were home this morning, Ms. Collins?" I looked around my empty living room. Emily had stayed over last night, but left early this morning to meet a friend. I had no alibi. My sister was here last night, but she left around 6. I've been alone since then. The detective's tone shifted, becoming more formal, more distant. "Ms. Collins, evidence was found at the scene. Fragments of the device used in the explosion. Your fingerprints were recovered from those fragments." The world tilted. I couldn't breathe. Someone had been planning this, and I had been part of that plan, either as a victim who was supposed to die or as the person who would be blamed. That's when I remembered Marcus, his pale face, his shaking hands, his desperate warning, "Don't go to work today." "I tell you, I wasn't there," I said, trying to remain calm, even as panic clawed up my throat. "Someone must have cloned my badge or stolen my car." Then a sudden realization hit me so hard I could barely speak. Wait, my car. Did the security footage show who got out of the car? The detective responded quietly, almost too quietly. "The footage from the garage has technical issues. We have clear images of the vehicle entering with your plates, but the driver's face is obscured. The camera angle makes identification impossible." My pulse quickened. How convenient. Whoever did this had access to my car, had taken it without me knowing, used it to enter the building, and the one camera that would have shown their face mysteriously malfunctioned? My identity hadn't just been stolen, it had been replaced. I glanced out the window, my heart racing. Was I being watched right now? Was someone waiting for me to panic and make the wrong move? Before I could ask more questions, Detective Morrison said, "Ms. Collins, units will be arriving at your address shortly to bring you in for questioning. This is standard procedure. Please remain at your residence and do not attempt to leave. This is for your own safety." The call ended, and in that silence, my instincts went into overdrive. If Marcus told me not to go to work and someone impersonated me at the scene of a terrorist attack, then police showing up might not be coming for my safety. They might be coming to arrest me. As soon as the line went dead, I moved fast. I closed all the blinds, locked every door, checked every window. My breathing was shallow, adrenaline flooding my system. Suddenly, there was a knock at my door, sharp, controlled, not hesitant like a concerned neighbor, not frantic like someone in danger. It was deliberate. I held my breath and stayed silent, pressing my back against the wall beside the door. Another knock. Then a voice I recognized. "Sarah, it's Marcus. Open the door. We need to talk. Now." My chest tightened. I moved slowly toward the door but didn't open it, my hand hovering over the lock. "How did you know what was going to happen?" I asked through the wood, voice barely above a whisper. His voice came back low and steady, controlled but urgent. "Because I intercepted their communications last night. Sarah, they're not coming to question you. They're coming to take you into federal custody. You were never meant to wake up in your own bed this morning." My head spun. "What are you talking about?" "They staged the explosion to eliminate everyone in that building, and you were supposed to be there. Not as a victim, Sarah, as the one they would blame. They planted your fingerprints on the device weeks ago when they broke into your house." He paused, and I could hear him breathing hard on the other side of the door. "And now they need you alive long enough to confess to something you didn't do." A cold realization washed over me like ice water. Whoever did this didn't just want me gone, they wanted me erased and rewritten as the villain. And whatever Marcus intercepted last night, whatever he was trying to prevent, was never about the building. It was about me. I opened the door slowly, not because I trusted Marcus completely, but because I trusted fear even less, and what he said next would shatter every single thing I thought I knew about who I was.
Marcus's eyes locked onto mine the moment the door cracked open, sharp, watchful, scanning behind me as if checking whether we were alone. Without asking permission, he stepped inside and closed the door behind him, locking it with a quick, practiced motion. He didn't waste time. "They're already on their way," he said, moving to the kitchen window to scan the street outside. "You have minutes, maybe less, before they arrive and declare this house a crime scene." I crossed my arms, trying to study my breathing, trying to make sense of any of this. "Why?" My voice came out raw. "Why me? What's going on? And how did you know this was going to happen?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he pulled the curtain back slightly, eyes tracking something I couldn't see. Then he lowered his voice and turned to face me. "Last night at 2:47 a.m., I intercepted an encrypted communication on a frequency I've been monitoring for months. It was coded, but I've been tracking their patterns long enough to decrypt it." He pulled out his phone and showed me a screenshot of text that meant nothing to me. "Protocol Swan, 11/02, execute 0845, target primary." Protocol Swan was the attack, Marcus explained. 11:02 is today. 0845 was the detonation time, and you, Sarah, were the primary target. My mouth went dry. "You've been monitoring them? Who are they? And why would anyone want to kill me?" Marcus pocketed his phone. "Sarah, I didn't move here by accident. I moved here to watch over you. Your father asked me to." The words hit me like a physical blow. I took a step back, my spine hitting the wall. "My father?" I shook my head, refusing to believe it. No, my father was an accountant, a normal man who worked 60-hour weeks and lived a quiet life. David Collins never worked in finance. That was his cover. He was involved in a covert investigation for nearly 2 decades. And you, Sarah? He paused, meeting my eyes. "You were the reason." My breath came in short gasps. "What does that mean?" He reached inside his jacket and pulled out a small black envelope, edges worn as if it had been carried for a long time. He held it out to me. "Your father knew something like this would happen one day. He left this for you. He told me to give it to you only if your life was in immediate danger." I hesitated before taking it, my fingers shaking as I unfolded the paper inside. There was a handwritten note in my father's familiar script, the same handwriting that used to leave post-it notes on the fridge, reminding me to call him. Sarah, if you are reading this, then what I feared has come to pass. You are not in danger because of anything you did. You're in danger because of who you are. There is more to your identity than you know. Marcus will tell you the rest. Trust him as you once trusted me. Do not surrender yourself to anyone. If they take you into custody, you will disappear. Not arrested, disappeared. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you sooner. I'm sorry for all the lies, but everything I did to keep you alive. Love always, Dad. My knees weakened. I sank into the nearest chair, the letter trembling in my hands. My father had known. He had been trying to prepare me. All those times he'd said, "There are things you're better off not knowing yet." I thought he was being dramatic, paranoid. Now those words came back to me like warnings from a ghost. Marcus met my eyes, his expression grim. They're not just framing you, Sarah. They're reclaiming you. Reclaiming, I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. What does that mean? He reached inside his jacket and pulled out a small black envelope, edges worn as if it had been carried for a long time. He held it out to me. Your father knew something like this would happen one day. He left this for you. He told me to give it to you only if your life was in immediate danger. I hesitated before taking it, my fingers shaking. I sank into the nearest chair, the letter trembling in my hands. My father had known. He had been trying to prepare me. All those times he'd said, "There are things you're better off not knowing yet." I thought he was being dramatic, paranoid. Now those words came back to me like warnings from a ghost. Marcus met my eyes, his expression grim. They're not just framing you, Sarah. They're reclaiming you. Reclaiming, I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. What does that mean? You were never just a civilian, Marcus said, each word deliberate. Your birth was not a coincidence. Your identity was constructed. Your father uncovered a conspiracy tied to one of the wealthiest families on the East Coast. When he refused to cooperate, he became a liability. His death was not natural, Sarah. You were meant to be eliminated next, but they found a better use for you. My heart thundered in my chest. To use me as what? He took a step closer, lowering his voice as if the walls themselves might be listening. As a scapegoat. They needed a narrative that would justify the next phase of their plan, a false flag event, a manufactured tragedy, and you, Sarah Collins, would be the face of it all. The realization burned through me like acid. Every strange moment, every shadow I had ignored, every instinct I had dismissed as paranoia had led me to this point. So, all of this was staged to destroy my life? Marcus's gaze was firm, unflinching. They're not just destroying your life, my jaw dropped, your legitimacy. Once they declare you a domestic terrorist, a national threat, they can seize every file connected to your father's investigation. They can erase the truth he died trying to protect. He reached into his coat again, this time pulling out a metal key card with a red emblem stamped on it. This is access to a secure storage vault your father used. It contains encrypted files that name the people behind this operation, the evidence he spent years gathering. If you don't reach that vault before they reach you, everything your father died for will be buried forever. I stared at the key card in his hand, then back at the note from my father. My entire life, I had believed I was ordinary, replaceable, invisible. Now I understood the truth. I was never invisible. I was never replaceable. I was watched because I was the last piece of a puzzle someone powerful didn't want solved. Suddenly, the distant wail of sirens began to echo across the neighborhood, growing louder, closer, inevitable. Marcus looked toward the front window, but he wasn't afraid. He said, "They're here." And for the first time since this morning, neither was I. Because fear had carried something I no longer possessed. Doubt. I folded my father's letter carefully and slipped the keycard into my pocket. Then I looked at Marcus and said, "Show me where we need to go." He nodded once, a flicker of something like pride crossing his face. And in that moment, I crossed the line between the life I had always known and the truth I was born to face. but I didn't know yet that the truth would force me to choose between justice and everyone I loved. We barely made it to Marcus's SUV before the first unmarked black vehicles turned the corner and began closing in on my street. The sirens had stopped. They didn't need them anymore. They weren't coming as law enforcement. They were coming as recovery. "Get in," Marcus ordered, engine already running as soon as my door clicked shut. We shot forward, tires screeching against asphalt. Through the rear window, I saw two men step out of a black sedan, scanning the area with cold precision. One of them lifted a radio to his mouth, his expression emotionless, certain, like a man retrieving property, not a person. We merged onto the highway, Marcus weaving through traffic with practiced ease. My hands gripped the armrest, knuckles white, but a strange calmness was settling over me beneath the adrenaline. Fear was leaving my body. What remained was clarity. After 20 minutes of tense silence, Marcus finally spoke. "There's something you need to understand before we reach the vault. Something about why they've been watching you your whole life." He reached into his jacket and handed me a tablet, screen already glowing. A file was open, labeled Collins, Sarah, subject designation, asset recovery priority. My stomach dropped. I scrolled down, pulse quickening as I read medical records, blood work results, genetic markers, and then at the bottom, a note typed in clinical language that made my blood run cold. Subject exhibits genetic profile consistent with Ashford bloodline. DNA match 99.7%. Medical history shows markers for trisomy X syndrome, mild cognitive delays, potential developmental challenges. Status, displaced heir. Deemed unsuitable, recommendation, immediate identity suppression to protect family legacy. I stared at the screen, the words blurring. "I don't understand," I whispered. "Ashford bloodline? Trisomy X? What does that mean?" Marcus kept his eyes on the road, jaw tight. 25 years ago, your father, David Collins, worked as a financial consultant for elite families on the East Coast. During an estate audit for one of his clients, the Ashford family, he discovered an irregularity buried in hospital records. A baby had been switched. My breath caught. Switched? The true heir, a 6-month-old girl born to Catherine and Robert Ashford, had a rare genetic condition, trisomy X syndrome. In most cases, it's barely noticeable, but the Ashfords' doctors warned them there could be learning disabilities, developmental delays, physical differences as she grew. Nothing life-threatening, but for a family obsessed with perfection, with maintaining their public image and legacy, he trailed off. They couldn't accept it. I felt sick. So they just got rid of their own child? Not directly. They hired a lawyer named Richard Blackwell to handle it discreetly. Blackwell arranged for the real baby, the one with the genetic condition, to be sent into illegal adoption. A healthy infant from a poor family was placed in your crib instead. The substitute child was raised as the Ashfords' legitimate daughter, Victoria. And you, the real heir, the imperfect one they couldn't accept, were sent away to disappear. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. My father, the man who had raised me with quiet patience and steady love, wasn't my biological father. He had saved me, stolen me back from whoever had stolen me first. 25 years. He's been protecting me for 25 years. Marcus nodded. Your father didn't report what he'd discovered. Instead, he tracked down the real baby through the illegal adoption network. When he found you in a state-run facility, already showing signs of neglect, he falsified adoption documents, created a new identity for you, and raised you as his own daughter. Sarah Collins was born that day. Beatrice Ashford ceased to exist. I stared out the window, watching the landscape blur past. My entire identity, everything I thought I knew about myself, was a construction. A rescue operation disguised as a normal life. Who did this? I asked, my voice hard. Who organized the switch? Richard Blackwell, one of the most powerful attorneys on the East Coast. He's made a career out of fixing problems for wealthy families, making scandals disappear, burying truths that could damage legacies.
When the Ashfords' daughter was born with a genetic condition they couldn't accept, Blackwell convinced them that replacing her was the only way to protect their family's future. My hands clenched into fists, and everyone just went along with it. The Ashfords got a perfect heiress who could represent their legacy without complications. Blackwell got millions in fees and the loyalty of one of the richest families in America. The birth parents of the substitute child got more money than they'd ever dreamed of. Everyone won. Everyone except you. And your father, the man who gave up everything to protect you. Marcus pulled off the main highway onto a rural access road, trees growing dense on either side. Your father spent 25 years gathering evidence, hospital records showing the falsified birth documentation, DNA samples he collected from the Ashfords without their knowledge through charity events and social gatherings, financial trails showing payments from Blackwell to offshore accounts, everything needed to prove who you really are. Then why didn't he ever tell me? Why did he keep this secret? Because he was waiting, Marcus said quietly. Waiting for you to be old enough, strong enough to handle the truth. He was going to tell you on your 35th birthday. He had it planned for years, had everything prepared. He glanced at me, pain flickering across his face, but he died before he got the chance. I stared at Marcus, a cold certainty settling in my chest. My father didn't have a stroke, did he? Marcus's hands tightened on the steering wheel, knuckles white. For a moment, he said nothing, just stared at the road ahead. Then he said, "Your father's death was listed as a massive stroke, but I saw the medical examiner's preliminary report before it was sealed. There were inconsistencies, toxicology markers that didn't fit the official narrative. Someone poisoned him." 2 days before he died, your father received a phone call, an offer. $50 million in exchange for you. They wanted him to deliver you voluntarily, to cooperate, to hand over all the evidence he'd gathered and disappear quietly. He refused, and the next day he started showing symptoms. Tears blurred my vision. I pressed my palm against my mouth to hold back a sob. All those years, I thought my father was just a quiet, overworked accountant who spent too much time in his office. Now I understood. He wasn't working. He was fighting to keep me safe, fighting to gather enough proof that one day the truth couldn't be buried. And they killed him for it. But there's something else, something that triggered everything happening today, something your father couldn't have predicted. I looked at him, dread coiling in my stomach. A month ago, you took a DNA ancestry test, through 23andMe. My blood went cold. I had taken a test, just for fun, out of curiosity, wondering about my heritage. It was supposed to be harmless. So did Victoria Ashford, 3 years ago, out of similar curiosity. When your results were processed and entered into the database, the system detected a genetic match, a close match, the kind that indicates immediate family. He glanced at me. Victoria got a notification that she had a sister, an unknown biological sister, someone the family records said shouldn't exist. My stomach dropped. Oh my God. Victoria is smart. When she saw that notification, she started asking questions, hiring investigators. She didn't know the truth yet, but she suspected something was deeply wrong with her identity. And when her investigation led to your father's name, when she started digging into hospital records from 1992, Marcus's jaw clenched. That's when they knew. Both of you had discovered pieces of the truth. Both of you had become liabilities. So they decided to kill me and frame me at the same time. Exactly. If you died in the explosion, problem solved. If you survived, but were framed as a terrorist, they could lock you away where you'd never be believed. Either way, you'd be neutralized. We turned off the main highway onto a rural access road, trees growing dense on either side. "There's something else you need to know," Marcus said quietly. "Something about why your father left the location of this vault in a place Victoria could eventually find it." I looked at him, confused. "Your father left a coded reference in his will. Nothing obvious, but someone smart enough, someone looking for answers, could decipher it. He wanted Victoria to find the vault. He wanted both of you to discover the truth. Because he believed that, together, you two could finish what he started. But as we approached the cabin,
I saw something that made my heart stop. Fresh tire tracks in the mud. Recent. And on the porch, a bouquet of white flowers. Someone else had been here, recently. Marcus saw it at the same moment I did. His hand went immediately to the concealed holster under his jacket. Stay behind me.
Marcus approached the cabin slowly, weapon drawn, every step deliberate. The front door was ajar, which he said was wrong. It should have been locked. He pushed it open with his foot, and we entered. The interior was sparse, dusty, clearly abandoned for years, but there were signs of recent disturbance, footprints in the dust, a chair pulled out from a table, and on that table, something that made my stomach twist. The bouquet of white lilies, fresh, petals still perfect. Next to the flowers was a handwritten note on expensive cardstock. Marcus picked it up carefully, read it, and his face went pale. He handed it to me without a word. The note said, "Sarah, we need to talk. You're not in danger from me. I just want the truth too. V." V? Victoria? Marcus's jaw clenched. Victoria Ashford, the woman who's been living your life. A chill ran through me. The woman who had taken my place, who had grown up with my name, my inheritance, my identity, knew I existed, and she'd been here. How did she find this place? I asked, voice shaking. Your father's will, Marcus said. He left a reference to the place where butterflies rest. Victoria must have deciphered it. This property belonged to your grandmother, your father's mother. Her maiden name was Monarch. He looked around, unease clear in his eyes. He wanted her to find it, but I didn't expect her to get here first. Marcus moved toward a door at the back of the cabin, this one solid steel and out of place in the rustic structure. The vault is through here. Whatever she came for, she didn't get inside. This door requires biometric access, your fingerprint. I approached the scanner mounted beside the steel door, my hand trembling as I pressed my thumb against the glass. A pulse of light ran along my skin, reading the unique patterns. A soft chime sounded. The vault door hissed and slowly rotated open, revealing a staircase descending into darkness. Marcus flicked on a flashlight and led the way down. The air grew colder as we descended, carrying a scent of old paper and metal. At the bottom, another door. Another scanner. I pressed my palm against it. The inner vault opened and we stepped into a circular room lined with filing cabinets, document boxes, and at the center, a glass pedestal. On that pedestal, sealed inside a protective case, was a leather-bound journal and a small wooden box. My father's journal. I lifted the case with trembling hands and opened to a bookmarked page. There was a letter addressed to me in his familiar handwriting, and seeing it made tears spill down my cheeks before I'd read a single word. My dearest Sarah, if you are reading this, then the lies surrounding your life have finally been stripped away. But what I need you to understand above all else is this. You were never an accident. You were never broken. You were never less than anyone else because of a genetic difference. You were born to one of the wealthiest families in America, and when they decided you weren't perfect enough for their image, they tried to erase you. But I found you, and I chose you, not because of what you represented or what you were worth, because of who you were. A baby who deserved to live, to be loved, to become whoever she wanted to be. The trisomy X syndrome they used to justify abandoning you, it means nothing about your worth. You graduated college with honors. You built a career. You became an extraordinary woman, not despite your genetics, but because of who you chose to be. The evidence in this vault will prove your identity. But Sarah, you don't need their validation. You don't need their name or their money. You are exactly who you were meant to be. The choice of what to do with this truth is yours alone, not mine, not theirs, yours. Whatever you decide,
Know that being your father was the greatest honor of my life. Love always, Dad. I pressed the letter to my chest, sobbing quietly. Marcus stood a respectful distance away, giving me space to grieve. When I could breathe again, I opened the wooden box. Inside was a delicate silver necklace with a butterfly pendant, tarnished with age. There was a small note beneath it. This was around your neck when I found you at the state facility. It's the only thing that came with you from your first life. I saved it for when you were ready. I held the necklace in my palm, the metal cold against my skin. This tiny piece of silver was the only connection to the life I was supposed to have lived. Marcus cleared his throat gently. Sarah, there's more. Your father documented everything. Names, dates, financial transactions, proof of the switch, proof of the conspiracy. And he hesitated. He left instructions. 2 options. He led me to a computer terminal built into the wall, surprisingly modern in the otherwise archaic vault. The screen flickered to life, showing 2 buttons. Option 1. Private resolution. Negotiate settlement. Accept compensation. Maintain anonymity. Ashford family, unaffected. Option 2. Public exposure. Release all evidence to media. Full disclosure. Legal consequences for all parties. Your father set this system up so you could choose, Marcus explained. If you select option 1, encrypted files will be sent to a mediator he trusted. You'll be compensated, given a new identity if you want it, and the Ashfords will never know publicly what happened. Victoria keeps her life. You get financial security and safety. He paused. If you select option 2, everything goes public. Every news outlet, every regulatory agency, every detail of the conspiracy. The Ashfords will be destroyed. Blackwell will face criminal charges. But Sarah, he looked at me seriously, you'll become the center of a media firestorm. Your privacy will be gone forever. And there will be powerful people who want to silence you. I stared at the 2 buttons, my father's letter still clutched in my other hand. This was the choice he'd left me. Not revenge, not obligation, choice. But before I could decide, my phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from an unknown number. Sarah, please don't press anything yet. Meet me first. You deserve to hear my side. Estake, Victoria.
And attached was a photo that made my blood freeze. My sister Emily, tied to a chair in some dark room, terror in her eyes, a gag in her mouth. The phone nearly slipped from my hands. I stared at the photo, my mind refusing to process what I was seeing. Emily, my sister, the only family I had left, was bound and gagged somewhere, fear radiating from her eyes. No, I whispered. No, no, no. Marcus snatched the phone from me, read the message, and his face went rigid. It's a trap. They're using her to force you into a position. I don't care if it's a trap. My voice cracked, rising into a shout. That's my sister! Another text came through. I'm not the one who took her, but I know who did. We can save her together, but only if you trust me. Address attached. Come alone. 1 hour. An address in Boston followed. A warehouse district. I grabbed the phone back, my hands shaking violently. I have to go. I have to. Sarah, listen to me. Marcus gripped my shoulders, forcing me to look at him. This is exactly what they want. They're separating us. Once you're alone and vulnerable, they'll take you and your sister. You'll both disappear. Then what do I do? I shouted, tears streaming down my face. Let them kill her? She came to visit me. She came to Boston because I asked her to. This is my fault. Marcus's expression softened, but his voice remained firm. No, we go together, but we go prepared. He released me and moved to a cabinet in the corner of the vault,
pulling out a metal case. Inside were 2 handguns, ammunition, and what looked like body cameras. Your father was thorough. He knew this day might come. He handed me one of the cameras. You wear this. Everything that happens gets recorded and uploaded to a secure cloud in real time. If something happens to us, the evidence doesn't die with us. I clipped the camera to my shirt with trembling fingers. Marcus loaded the weapons with practiced efficiency, then handed one to me. Have you ever fired a gun? No. Then don't. Not unless I'm dead and it's your only option. He tucked his weapon into his holster. We have 45 minutes to reach that address. But Sarah. He looked at me with something like sorrow. You need to prepare yourself for the possibility that your sister might already be gone. This might be a recovery, not a rescue. I don't care, I said, my voice hollow. I'm not leaving her. We locked the vault behind us, sealing the evidence inside for now, and ran back to the SUV. Marcus drove like a man possessed, weaving through traffic, pushing the vehicle to dangerous speeds. I clutched my phone, staring at Emily's photo, memorizing every detail. Tell me about Victoria. What do you know about her? Marcus glanced at me. Victoria Ashford is 33 years old. She took over as CEO of Ashford Industries 3 years ago, after her father, your biological father Robert, stepped down due to health issues. By all accounts, she's competent, respected, maybe even admired by the people who work for her. She's married, has twin 5-year-old boys. My stomach twisted. She had children, a family, a life built on a foundation of lies. Does she know? I asked. Does she know that she's not really part of that family? Based on the note she left, I think she suspects. Your father believed she was as much a victim in this as you were. She was taken from her birth family as an infant and raised with a lie. She has no idea her entire identity is stolen. A strange emotion stirred in my chest. Not quite sympathy, but something close. Victoria and I were mirrors, 2 women whose lives had been rewritten by people who saw us as pieces on a board. Why would she help me? If exposing the truth destroys everything she's built, her career, her family's reputation, her children's future? Marcus didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was thoughtful. Maybe because she suspects the truth and can't live with the lie anymore. Maybe deep down she's always known something was wrong. Or maybe... He paused. Maybe she's a better person than the people who created this lie. We pulled into the warehouse district as the sun began to set, casting long shadows across abandoned buildings. Marcus parked a block away from the address Victoria had sent, scanning the area through binoculars. I see 2 vehicles. One matches the description of Victoria's personal car, a silver Mercedes. The other is a black van with tinted windows. Could be them, could be private security hired by Blackwell. My phone buzzed again. Victoria. I'm inside. 2nd floor, southeast corner. I'm alone. Your sister is here. She's alive. I paid the men who took her to leave. Please hurry. Marcus looked at me. Last chance to call this off. We can go to the FBI. Let them handle it. And let Emily die while they verify jurisdiction and process paperwork? No. I shook my head. I'm going in. Then we go together. We approached the warehouse carefully, weapons concealed, every sense on high alert. The building was old, windows broken, graffiti covering the walls. Inside, the air smelled of rust and decay. We climbed a metal staircase to the 2nd floor, footsteps echoing in the vast empty space. At the southeast corner, a door stood slightly open, light spilling through the crack. Marcus signaled for me to stay behind him. He pushed the door open slowly. Inside was a small office space, surprisingly clean compared to the rest of the building. And there, standing beside a table, was a woman who looked almost exactly like me. Victoria Ashford had my eyes, my bone structure, even the same way of standing, with weight shifted to one hip. But it was what was on the table that made my heart stop. Emily, unconscious but breathing, and a manila envelope with my name written across it. Victoria looked at me with tears streaming down her face and said, "I'm so sorry. I didn't know what they'd done to you, but I do now, and I can't let them win."
For a moment, nobody moved. Victoria and I stared at each other across the small room, two women who should have been strangers, but were connected by the cruelest of threads. Stolen lives, stolen identities. We were living proof of a crime that had never been punished. Marcus kept his weapon trained on Victoria, eyes scanning the room for threats. "Where are the people who took her sister?" "Gone," Victoria said quickly, voice strained. "I paid them $50,000 to release her and leave. Cash. They didn't ask questions." She looked at me, desperation in her eyes. "I swear to you, Sarah, I didn't order this. When I found out someone on Blackwell's payroll had taken Emily to force your hand, I intercepted the exchange. I couldn't let them hurt her to get to you." I rushed past Marcus to Emily, checking her pulse, her breathing. She was alive, just unconscious. Relief flooded through me so powerfully I nearly collapsed. "What did they give her?" I demanded. "Sedative, propofol. She'll wake up in an hour or two with a headache, but no permanent harm." Victoria took a tentative step closer. "Sarah, I know you have no reason to trust me, but please, let me explain." Marcus positioned himself between us protectively. "Talk fast." Victoria took a shaky breath and sat down in a chair across from us, hands visible on the table, non-threatening. 6 weeks ago, I got a notification from 23andMe. It said I had a close genetic match. A sister. Someone I'd never heard of, never knew existed. Her voice broke. At first, I thought it was a mistake. I'm an only child. But the match was too strong to ignore. 99.7% probability of being siblings. She wiped her eyes. "I hired a private investigator. I needed to know if I'd been adopted, if there was some family secret my parents hadn't told me. The investigator found inconsistencies in hospital records, birth documentation that didn't align. And then he found a name that had been deliberately buried. David Collins, a financial consultant who worked for my family in the early 90s and then disappeared from public record." Victoria looked at me with raw pain in her eyes. "When I saw your father's name, I started digging deeper. I found property records for this cabin under his mother's maiden name. I deciphered the reference in his will, and when I came here yesterday and saw the vault, saw the evidence he'd been gathering for 25 years, she could barely say it. I found out that I'm not Victoria Ashford. I'm nobody. I don't even know who I really am." I felt my anger softening despite myself. This woman, who had everything I'd been denied, had just lost everything too. "So you know," I said quietly. "You know you're not the real heir." Victoria nodded, fresh tears spilling. "Yes, I know. And I know that you are. Beatrice Helena Ashford, born April 14th, 1992. Switched with me when you were 6 months old because you had a genetic condition my parents, your biological parents, couldn't accept." She reached for the manila envelope on the table and slid it toward me. "This is everything I found. Medical records showing the switch, DNA comparisons, financial trails showing payments from Blackwell to offshore accounts, testimony from a hospital nurse who witnessed the exchange and has been living with guilt for 25 years. Marcus picked up the envelope, checking its contents with a practiced eye. He nodded at me. "It's legitimate. Hospital records, bank statements, witnessed affidavit. She's telling the truth." "Why are you doing this?" I asked Victoria, genuinely confused. "Why help me?
Exposing this destroys your life, your career, your family. Your children will grow up knowing their mother's entire identity was a lie. Victoria laughed bitterly, the sound broken and raw. My family? Sarah, my entire life has been a performance. My parents have always treated me like a valuable asset, not a daughter. Every decision I've made has been about preserving the Ashford legacy, maintaining appearances, never showing weakness or imperfection. She looked at me with envy and pain mixed together. Do you know what it's like to grow up in a house where love is conditional, where every achievement is measured against some impossible standard, where you're only valued for what you represent, not who you are? She wiped her eyes roughly. You got to be real. You got to be loved for who you actually are, not what you represented. Your father, the man who raised you, he chose you. My parents chose a lie. But your children, I started. My children deserve to grow up knowing the truth. I won't raise them the way I was raised, in a house built on lies and conditional love. Yes, this will be hard for them. Yes, there will be difficult conversations and public scrutiny. But they'll know that their mother chose honesty over comfort, and maybe that's worth more than any inheritance. She stood up slowly, hands raised to show she was unarmed. So I'm giving you a choice. I can walk out of here right now, disappear, let you expose everything alone. I won't fight it. Or, she hesitated. Or, we can do this together. Stand side by side and tell the truth. Two women who are both victims of the same crime. Marcus looked at me. Sarah, this is your call. I looked at Emily, still unconscious, then at Victoria, then at the envelope full of evidence. Two paths stretched before me, and whichever I chose would reshape not just my life, but hers, dozens of others caught in the web of this conspiracy, and possibly even Victoria's innocent children. But before I could answer, my phone rang. It was a video call from an unknown number. When I answered, a man's face appeared on screen. Elderly, distinguished, with cold eyes that had seen too much power wielded without consequence. Behind him I could see tropical vegetation through a window, palm trees swaying. He was calling from somewhere far away. Miss Collins, he said smoothly, his voice carrying the confidence of someone who had never lost. My name is Richard Blackwell. I'm calling from my residence in the Cayman Islands, where I'm enjoying a well-deserved retirement, and I think it's time we discussed terms.
The man on the screen smiled, but it was the smile of a predator who had never known defeat. Richard Blackwell, the architect of the conspiracy that had stolen my life before I even knew I had one, looked completely at ease despite everything crumbling around him. I must commend you both, Blackwell said, his voice smooth as oil. Victoria, I didn't expect you to betray your family quite so thoroughly. And Sarah, your father would be proud of how resourceful you've been today, evading capture, reaching the vault, even managing to rescue your sister. Truly impressive. Marcus stepped closer, angling the phone so Blackwell could see his face. What do you want? What I've always wanted, Blackwell replied calmly. A clean resolution. No scandals, no public exposure, no consequences for decisions made decades ago by people who are now either dead or too powerful to touch. He leaned back in his chair, tropical breeze ruffling his silver hair through the open window behind him. I'm prepared to offer both of you a settlement. Sarah, $100 million deposited into an offshore account of your choice. Victoria, continued control of Ashford Industries with no questions asked about your legitimacy, plus my assurance that your children will never know the truth. All you have to do is destroy the evidence and disappear from each other's lives. And if we refuse? I asked, my voice cold. Blackwell's smile widened. Then I activate Protocol 7.
Within 10 minutes, fabricated evidence will be transmitted to every security agency in the country showing that Sarah Collins is a domestic terrorist responsible for this morning's attack. Victoria Ashford will be exposed as a co-conspirator who helped plan the attack. And your sister Emily? Well, tragic accidents happen to witnesses all the time. My blood turned to ice. You're bluffing. Am I? Blackwell tilted his head, amused. I've been protecting powerful people from their own mistakes for 40 years, Miss Collins. I've buried scandals that would have toppled governments. I've made inconvenient people disappear. Do you really think two young women with no legal standing and a dead man's evidence pose a credible threat to me? You killed my father, I said, my voice shaking with rage. Your father made a choice, Blackwell said coldly. I offered him $50 million to deliver you and destroy his evidence. He refused. He chose his principles over his life. That was his decision, not mine. Victoria stepped forward, her voice shaking. You destroyed both our lives. You took away the chance for either of us to know who we really are, and you did it for money?
I did it because your biological parents couldn't accept imperfection, Blackwell said with a shrug. Catherine and Robert Ashford wanted a perfect heir to carry their legacy. When their daughter was born with a genetic condition that might cause developmental challenges, they couldn't bear the thought of their perfect image being tarnished. I provided a solution. They got a healthy, beautiful heiress. The substitute family got more wealth than they'd ever dreamed. And you, Victoria, got to grow up in luxury instead of poverty. He looked at me with disdain. And you, Sarah, got to live it all. The Ashfords wanted the imperfect child euthanized. I convinced them adoption was cleaner. The words hit me like a physical blow. They hadn't just wanted to hide me, they'd wanted me dead. You have 5 minutes to decide. Blackwell checked his watch, a gold Rolex catching the Caribbean sunlight. Transfer all evidence to my secure server and accept my offer, or I press one button and both your lives are over. The choice is yours, but choose wisely. The call ended. Marcus immediately went to the window, scanning the street below. He's not bluffing. I see 3 vehicles moving into position around the building. We have maybe 3 minutes before they breach. Victoria grabbed my arm, her perfectly manicured nails digging into my skin. Sarah, what do we do? I looked at my unconscious sister, then at the evidence in the envelope, then at Victoria, a woman I should have hated but couldn't. We were both prisoners of the same lie. How many people know the truth right now? I asked Marcus. Just us, he said, and Blackwell's network. If we're taken or killed, the physical evidence dies with us. The vault is locked and requires your biometric access. An idea formed in my mind, desperate, but possible. The body cameras. They're still recording, right? Streaming to the cloud? Marcus's eyes lit up with understanding. Yes, real-time upload to an encrypted server your father set up. Even if they take the physical evidence, the digital record exists. I turned to Victoria. Do you still want to do this together? Even if it costs us everything? Even if your children see it? Even if you lose everything you've built? She didn't hesitate. My children deserve a mother who tells the truth. Yes. I pulled up my phone and opened Instagram. Then we don't give Blackwell a choice. We don't negotiate. We go public right now, before he can stop us. Marcus nodded approvingly. Do it. I hit the Go Live button. Within seconds, viewers started joining. 20 people, 50, 100. My name is Sarah Collins, and this is Victoria Ashford. We're coming to you live because in approximately 2 minutes, powerful people are going to try and silence us. But before they do, you need to know the truth about what happened to us 25 years ago. Victoria stepped beside me, adding her face to the frame. We were switched as infants. Sarah is the real Ashford heir. I'm an imposter who's been living a stolen life, and the man responsible, attorney Richard Blackwell, just threatened to kill us if we didn't stay quiet. The viewer count was growing, but not fast enough. We had maybe 300 people watching.
Not enough. Then I did something bold. I tagged every major journalist account I could think of at CNN, BBC News, Washington Post, New York Times, 60 Minutes, Rachel Maddow. Everything we're about to tell you is documented. I continued, holding up the envelope. Medical records proving the switch, financial transactions showing payments, DNA evidence, all being uploaded to public servers as we speak. We're not asking for sympathy, we're demanding accountability. Glass shattered downstairs. Heavy step-toms thundered up the metal staircase. Marcus positioned himself at the door, weapon raised. "They're coming," he said calmly. But I kept talking, kept streaming. My viewer count suddenly jumped. 1,000, 5,000. Someone with a large following had just shared the stream. At Ryan Gosling Politics had reposted it to his 3.2 million followers. Holy shit, this is happening live. Everyone needs to see this. The numbers exploded. 20,000, 50,000, 100,000. If something happens to us, if this feed cuts out, you'll know why. And you'll know who's responsible. Richard Blackwell, the Ashford family, everyone who profited from stealing 2 babies and destroying 2 lives. The evidence is already public. The truth can't be buried anymore. The door exploded inward. Men in tactical gear flooded into the room, weapons raised. But they froze when they saw the camera, the live feed, the growing number of viewers now exceeding 500,000. One of them spoke urgently into his radio. "Abort. They're live. Repeat, they're broadcasting. We have over 500,000 witnesses." Another voice crackled back, audible in the silence. "Stand down. Do not engage. Blackwell's orders." And in that moment of hesitation, watching these armed men back slowly out of the room because the simple act of being seen had made us untouchable, I realized we'd won. Not because we were stronger, not because we had more power or resources, but because the truth, once witnessed by enough people, becomes impossible to erase.
The tactical team retreated. Not far, just outside the doorway, waiting for orders that wouldn't come. Because Richard Blackwell, for all his power and connections and decades of burying inconvenient truths, couldn't stop a story that 1 million people were now watching in real time. I kept the camera rolling. Victoria stood beside me, and together we told the entire story. The genetic condition that made the Ashfords reject their biological daughter, the conspiracy to switch 2 babies, the murder of my father when he refused to cooperate, the attack on my office building designed to kill me and free me simultaneously. Everything. Marcus carefully documented the evidence on camera, showing hospital records, DNA reports, financial transactions. He even showed the threatening text messages and played the audio recording of Blackwell's video call, his voice clear as he offered us blood money to stay silent. Within an hour, the stream had been picked up by major news outlets. CNN interrupted their regular programming. The Associated Press sent breaking news alerts. Federal investigators were en route to the warehouse, not to arrest us, but to protect us and seize the evidence we were broadcasting to the world. Emily woke up surrounded by paramedics, confused and groggy, but safe. I held her hand while Victoria explained to shocked reporters what had been done to both of us. The Ashford family released an emergency statement claiming ignorance and promising full cooperation with authorities, though no one really believed them. In the days and weeks that followed, the legal battles began in earnest. Victoria stepped down as CEO of Ashford Industries, unwilling to profit from a stolen identity, even while investigators determined the full scope of what had happened. Her husband stood by her, complicated and angry, but committed to working through it for their children. The Ashfords themselves faced criminal investigations. Catherine Ashford, my biological mother, gave a tearful interview claiming she'd been manipulated by Blackwell, that she'd never wanted to give me up. But hospital records showed she'd signed the authorization. She'd made her choice 25 years ago.
Richard Blackwell fought extradition from the Cayman Islands for 3 months before finally being brought back to the United States in handcuffs. The evidence against him was overwhelming: conspiracy, fraud, and enough circumstantial evidence of my father's murder that prosecutors felt confident pursuing charges. And I had to decide who I wanted to be. I could have claimed the Ashford fortune. Legally, I was the biological heir. DNA tests ordered by federal prosecutors confirmed everything we'd said. I could have walked into that world of wealth and privilege and taken everything that had been denied to me. But when I thought about my father, the man who raised me with love and sacrifice, who gave up his career and his safety to protect a child who wasn't his blood, I realized something important. He didn't save me so I could become an heiress. He saved me so I could become myself. I settled out of court. The Ashford family, desperate to avoid further scandal and criminal charges, offered a substantial settlement, $20 million. Enough to be secure, to help Emily, to honor my father's memory, but not so much that it would define my entire existence. I kept my name, Sarah Collins, the name my father gave me, the identity I'd built over 33 years. Beatrice Ashford was a life I never lived, a person I never became. Let her stay buried. With part of the settlement money, I established the David Collins Foundation for children caught in illegal adoptions and genetic discrimination. My father had saved one child. Maybe his legacy could save others. Victoria and I stayed in touch. It wasn't easy. There was therapy, difficult conversations, moments where the pain of what had been done to us threatened to drive us apart. But slowly, carefully, we became something unexpected. Friends. Not sisters exactly. We'd never had the chance to be that. But two women rebuilding their lives from the rubble of someone else's crime. She found her biological parents through the investigators' records, a working-class couple from Dorchester who'd been paid $200,000 to give up their infant daughter and told she'd have a better life with a wealthy family. They'd regretted it every day since. When she met them, her birth mother sobbed and couldn't stop apologizing. Victoria changed her name legally, dropped Ashford, and took her birth mother's maiden name, Martinez. Started a new career in nonprofit work, using her business skills to help organizations that actually mattered to her, instead of padding her adoptive family's portfolio. She and her husband separated but remained committed co-parents. Her children, the twin boys, were young enough that they'd grow up knowing the truth from the beginning. She didn't want them carrying the weight of lies the way we had.
6 months after everything exploded into public view, I went back to the cabin where my father's vault was hidden. I stood in that circular room surrounded by evidence that had changed everything. Boxes and files that had cost my father his life and given me mine back. I opened the wooden box containing the butterfly necklace one more time. The silver was tarnished, delicate, a relic from a life I'd never known. I put it on. The metal was cold against my skin, but it felt right. A connection to who I was born to be and who I chose to become. Here's what I learned through all of this, what I need you to understand if you're listening. Identity isn't about blood or birthright or the circumstances of your birth. It's about the choices you make when you discover who you really are. I was born Beatrice Ashford, to parents who couldn't accept imperfection. But I became Sarah Collins, raised by a man who chose love over biology, protection over profit. Both are true, both are real. And I wouldn't trade the father who chose me for all the wealth of the family who discarded me. If you're watching this and your life has been shaped by lies, by secrets, by people who thought they could control your story, know this. The truth is worth fighting for. Not because it's easy, not because it doesn't hurt,
but because you deserve to live a life that's authentically yours. Victoria and I could have stayed silent. We could have taken Blackwell's blood money and disappeared. We could have protected ourselves and let the lie continue. But then we would have been prisoners forever. And our children, if we ever had them, would have inherited that prison. 3 weeks after I put on my father's necklace, I discovered I was pregnant. 11 weeks along. The father is Marcus, actually. What started as a partnership built on survival became something more complicated and real. He's still figuring out how to be a person instead of just a protector. We're taking it slow. And now I'm bringing a child into this world who will know from day one that they are loved for exactly who they are. No secrets, no lies, no conditions on their worth. They'll know their grandfather was a hero who gave up everything to save a child who wasn't his blood, but was his daughter in every way that mattered. They'll know that truth, no matter how painful, is better than comfortable lies. They'll know that family isn't about genetics or fortune or legacy. It's about choosing to love someone so completely that you'd risk everything to protect them. And they'll know about trisomy X syndrome if they're curious. They'll know that their mother was labeled imperfect and unsuitable by people who measured worth in the wrong ways. And that she built a good life anyway, not because of her genetics, but because she chose to define herself by her actions, not her chromosomes. That's my story. That's how I survived the day I was never supposed to see. That's how I discovered who I was and who I chose to become. And if you believe that stories like this need to be told, that the truth matters even when it's inconvenient for powerful people, then I hope you'll share this. Because somewhere out there is another Sarah, another Victoria, another child whose identity was stolen before they even knew they had one. And they deserve to know they're not alone.